Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. In review today is the Three Musketeers and the Four Musketeers on 4K Blu-ray. Starting off with the Three Musketeers, let's take a look at the tech specs. It was shot on 35mm, it's got a 4K DI, the aspect ratio is 185:1, it's got an LPCM 2.0 mono soundtrack, the disc supports HDR10 and Dolby Vision with a full enhancement layer for the Dolby Vision grade. The HDR10 grading has a maximum content light level of 383 nits and a maximum frame average light level of 94 nits. It's a 100GB disc, the average bitrate is 94.96 megabytes per second, the runtime is 105 minutes and it's rated 12. It's one for all and all for fun as the Three Musketeers arrives on 4K Blu-ray courtesy of Studio Canal, with a brand new 4K restoration and HDR presentation of the film that revitalises this 70s classic. In comparison to the now 12-year-old Blu-ray that Studio Canal released back in 2011, this new UHD offers a satisfactory marked improvement with a noticeably more natural and healthy appearance across the board. The image now features a fine layer of organic grain, making for an appealing cinematic look and staying clear of any noise reduction or blockiness. Even though it can frequently carry a softer look, often inherent to the image, the fine-grained structure and increase in resolution makes way for an improved level of natural sharpness. Building architecture is more defined, with bricks, windows and ornate designs being more prominent. Period clothing pieces have increased intricacy with the patterns, beading and lacework, and facial features such as lines, wrinkles and hair are more pronounced. The colour palette has been reinvigorated and somewhat brought back to life for this release. It's out with the often insipid colour scheme from the old Blu-ray and in with a far more natural and realistic approach for this new UHD. With the assistance of HDR10 or Dolby Vision and the wider colour gamut, skin tones are healthier, the greens of the countryside are lusher, reds are bolder, especially on the costumes, and blues are richer, noticeable in the daytime sky. The grading does have a slight modern look to it at times, with teal tones creeping into the blues and whites on occasion, and some shots leaning towards magenta. But it must be stressed that the palette remains faithful for the most part and isn't overly tealified like on some Studio Canal releases. In some of the outdoor daytime scenes, the brighter areas of the image can have an overt hotness to them. This appears to be part of the film's intended look and is retained here on the 4K, though the UHD does boast better control to these areas, with a little more detail being retained in the brightest spots. Black levels are adequate in the darker scenes and maintain a good amount of depth and shadow detail. It's also worth noting that the day for night sequences, such as when D'Artagnan is following Constance and the Duke of Buckingham, have been better graded for this release and now appear darker and more appropriate for the nighttime setting. I didn't detect any serious encode or compression related issues, and the image retained good stability throughout. As for the audio, the Three Musketeers features an LPCM 2.0 mono soundtrack that makes for a solid accompaniment to the movie, even if sounding a little dated. Sound effects such as the clashing of swords or the galloping horses are all reproduced with good clarity and carry the action sequences along well, with a nice spread across the front channels. Michael Legrand's musical score is delivered with good fidelity, and dialogue is rendered crisp and clear, although it did feel ever so slightly out of sync at times, something which I believe has always featured on previous home releases, a very minor issue that some may not even notice. If you enjoy this type of content, why not consider subscribing and follow me on Twitter and Instagram at chrisatthemovie to stay up to date with the latest physical media news. Moving on to the Four Musketeers. Let's go over the tech specs. It was shot on 35mm, it's got a 4K DI, the aspect ratio is 185:1, it's got an LPCM 2.0 mono soundtrack, the disc supports HDR10 and Dolby Vision with the full enhancement layer for the Dolby Vision grade. The HDR10 grading has a maximum content light level of 380 nits and a maximum frame average light level of 119 nits. It's a 100GB disc, the average bitrate is 94.94 megabytes per second, the runtime is 106 minutes and it's rated 12. As these films were shot at the same time, it's not surprising that this film has a similar look to the first one, and subsequently also benefits from the same improvements. Again, the image also now features a healthy, evenly spread grain structure with a nice cinematic appeal, and is void of any digital tinkering. This film also has its fair share of softer scenes, though these come at a slightly higher frequency than the first film, a mix of some intentional and some age-related. The colour palette also gains from the same enhancements, with a far more natural and faithful grading, resulting in lusher primary and secondary colours throughout. The darker scenes, such as in the dimly lit interiors, display sufficient black level depth with good shadow detail. As with the first film, I didn't detect any serious encode or compression related issues, and the image remained stable throughout. As for the audio, the Four Musketeers is also accompanied by an LPCM 2.0 mono soundtrack that delivers a satisfactory experience. The musical score this time, courtesy of Lalo Schifrin, suits the movie particularly well and comes through with a nice amount of energy and some decent bass tones, and dialogue is clear and audible throughout. To summarise, I'll give the Three Musketeers a 7 for the picture and a 6.5 for the audio. And I'll give the Four Musketeers a 6.8 for the picture and a 6.6 for the audio. Overall, Studio Canal have done a solid job restoring these two classics for the 4K UHD format and bringing them back to life. If you're a fan of these movies, they're definitely a worthy addition to your collection, as these are without a doubt the best they have looked on the home format and a solid upgrade over the old Blu-rays, boasting superior detail levels, more natural colour palettes and organic grain structures. So these are my thoughts on the Three Musketeers and the Four Musketeers on 4K Blu-ray. Will you be picking these up? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching guys, enjoy your movies, bye!